Rapids. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to episode 18 of Horsin Around right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Krauts, along with good friend and co-host Pete Visco. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to take a look at some Kentucky Derby long shot possibilities. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, smash that like button below the video player, and in the top right-hand corner, hit that notification bell so that you know when new content will arise. And boy, do we have a lot of content in the next 2 weeks. It's only 2 weeks away. It's hard to believe, to the Kentucky Derby. You can follow us right there on X at H Kravitz, scrolling the bottom of the screen, hkravitzhorse at gmail.com. You can follow Pete Visco right there at pvisco28. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Pete, why don't you talk about this very briefly? We talked about this on Thursday. Kentucky Derby preview shows. Where can they find out all the information?
Yeah, if you go to our website, hhhracingpodcast.com, as you can see on the screen there, on the front page, just scroll down a little bit and you can see all of our upcoming shows, starting with our last show, which included some discussion of something that I'm completely blanking on. What was that?
Pace Scenario.
Pace Scenario. Yes, sorry. That was Illinois Derby show with Pace Scenario. So starting from there all the way through the post-Derby show. So you could see everything. I don't even know how many. I think it's about 14 total shows. So please check there. And then also real quick, I'll mention on the website for anyone doing their handicapping, if you go to the Kentucky Derby or Kentucky Oaks pages, we have every prep race. We have video for every prep race on there. So it's a one-stop shop. So you don't have to go to YouTube and do searches or go to your ADW or wherever you want to go. You can go right there, one shot. You could see every prep race for the Oaks and the Derby. So it's a nice one-stop shop place to go.
Just to let everyone know what's happening this week. Again, you can check it out where Pete said on our YouTube channel. Tomorrow night, we're filming, of course, Monday night here live. Tomorrow night, Tuesday, we're going to have a lot of fun, Pete. I can't wait for this. It's our first ever HHH Racing Podcast Derby Fantasy Draft. We're going to be drafting actually 6 horses each, 4 teams, and everyone at home, you have a chance to win some money and HHH Racing Podcast merch. But the only way to find out is if you watch the show tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, our fun fantasy Derby draft. Then Wednesday night, we've got another great show. That is going to be a show called Should We Hedge or Not? Of course, everyone knows we got a big Derby future that we're live to on Sierra Leone. We're going to have some guests on as well. And we'd love to hear your opinion. I sent out an email, Pete, and I've gotten like 25 suggestions already. So good. I can't wait to talk about should we hedge or not on our special Derby future bet that we're live to. That's Wednesday, and that show is going to start at 8:30 Eastern. It's going to be a half an hour later due to some people that were invited on the show. And then Thursday, very quickly, we're actually starting an hour earlier, Pete. So this is why everyone's got to hit the notification bell and check out. And the show times might change a little bit. So if Pete's times are a little bit incorrect on the website, that's my fault. That's not Pete's fault. But we are changing a few times this week to try to work out some things. But again, Thursday night will be a 7 p.m. Eastern start. We're going to have Jim Miller on recapping the the Illinois Derby at Hawthorne, the contest. And we'll talk about a little bit about opening weekend at Churchill Downs. And of course, we're going early because there's something called the NFL Draft Thursday night. My Chicago Bears have the 1 and 9 pick. And frankly, I want to see the draft. And a lot of other people, I'm sure, want to also. So we're going a little bit early. We don't want to bump into the big event for the NFL. So that's happening this week. You got Power Picks tip sheet. Look below the video player. Pete, we've talked about this. It's only $4 a weekend. We are not upcharging for the Derby and Oaks. You can get literally about 12 pages of Derby/Oaks information a week from this weekend for only $4. It's a great deal. I don't know what people are waiting for. Why spend 25, 30, 50, 70 from other people when you can spend only $4 for us? Look below the video player information about our Power Picks tip sheet. You already mentioned our website, and we're also on Instagram. Pete, Derby long shots. Everyone wants to find a long shot in the Derby. Well, except us, because we want Sierra Leone to win. But, everyone's looking for long shots. Got a little trivia to start with you, Pete. And I got to be honest, I wouldn't know the answer to this question until about 10 minutes ago when I looked it up. What was the longest long shot winner of the Kentucky Derby in the history? You want to take a guess? Or maybe a year? Because I'm not sure. Actually, the horse's name you've heard of because it's not a famous name, but the name you've probably heard of, but it was quite a while ago. You want to take a guess on the year or maybe what the odds were? More fair question.
I am going to say 1968. 60 to 1.
Okay. The biggest long shot ever to win the Kentucky Derby was a horse named Donerail.
Yep.
And it was in 1913, Pete.
Oh my gosh.
91 to 1. And how quickly you forget?
Paul, if we had Paul on, we could have got a first-hand account. But
Paul was there on the rail. No pun intended. Donerail. We'll have to ask Paul what it felt to see that horse in 1913 run. Rich Strike was second in 2022. He was 80 to 1. Pete. I
didn't remember him being talked of as the longest, but I guess that was pretty close. So that makes sense. Yep. I'm a bad history person though, so I have no memory for dates and stuff like that.
I don't know how well I would do in this question. The third longest shot was Country House, who of course was DQ'd into that win in 2019 at 65 to 1, and then Mind That Bird in 2009, 50 to 1. So 2009, 2019, and 2022. In the last 15 years, Pete, we've seen 3 of the 4 longest shots on the board win the Kentucky Derby. What do you account for that? Just complete dumb luck, coincidence, or do you think there's something going on lately?
What I mostly account for is that the Kentucky Derby is the biggest outlier that we have in racing. And there is, as much as we like to handicap it and as much as we like to talk about it, I think it's almost unhandicappable. I think it's pure luck. I think it's pure trip. I think it doesn't really matter. It's why using the Derby to handicap subsequent races is a fool's errand too, because almost nothing out of it is transferable, it feels like. So I just think some years you get lucky, you're unlucky, whatever trip. I mean, when Rich Strike won, I mean, second and third, Zandon and what's the E horse that I'm blanking on? Who ran second? Body? No, who got hurt in the Breeders' Cup Classic? He ran second. He might not start with an E. I'm totally making it up. It was second to Rich Strike. He was the favorite. I'm completely blanking. It doesn't matter.
Essential Quality? No. Okay.
No. That was the other one. That was the Medina Spirit year. So either way, he ran a winning race, and Rich Strike Epicenter. Thank you, Eric, in the chat. Epicenter. Okay, I knew it was an E, but he ran a winning race, which you would expect from the best horse in the race, and it just so happens that this 80 to 1 shot comes out of nowhere. So I don't put a lot of stock one way or the other into reasoning why. I think it's just dumb luck.
Well, I would tell you what, our chat is red hot. People are all over us for not having Epicenter, and you know what?
I just said, hey, I'm old. My memory sucks. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Raymond. Raymond, I had Pioneer of the Nile was one of the biggest Derby bets I've ever made, and that one hurt.
Let's just really quickly, Nick Feldman in the chat. Let's talk to some people in the chat real quick, Pete, and then we'll get to the discussion. What are we defining as long shot? 10 to 1 or more? Good question, Nick Feldman. And what's up, Nick? How you doing? We are defining long shots tonight, Pete, as the 10 longest prices as of now or last day or two from Vegas's odds. We're not defining as the odds from Twin Spires. We're going the actual live odds right now from Vegas in general, Nick. So the longest 10 horses as of now in the odds in Las Vegas is what I have defined as the 10 longest shots. This is not our opinion of the 10 longest shots either. These are strictly by the odds. We got Katie is here. What's up, Katie? Let's see. Mike Monroe is here. What's up, Mike? Good evening. How are you? Rodney Evans is here. Wants to talk about Encino, who is on our list, I believe, tonight, Pete. So we'll be talking about Encino. Let's see. Stole It Breezing. How many plan to use the coach's horse as their long shot? Just Steel is on our list. Ran a big race last time. You can never underestimate the coach. who has an outside shot of having 2 in the Derby, by the way. People don't know, but Seize the Gray is, I think, 3rd AE right now. You never know, Pete. Maybe 4th AE. Who knows? Let's see. We got a lot of opinions here. Mark Bogaz is here. What's up, Mark? Raymond Cromley is here. We got a lot of people. Tom Espinoza. Anyway, the list goes on and on. We want a very active chat tonight. If you're watching on X right now, and according to my stats, we have about 40 people right now live watching on X. You might want to switch over to our YouTube channel. That way you can contribute to our live chat and our discussion. But listen, Pete, we're happy to have people watch and listen wherever they may, live or replay. All right, let's jump right in, Pete. We're going to go, everyone, in reverse order of odds. In other words, we're going with the longest shots on the board. And when I say the board, I'm referring to current odds in Las Vegas. We got these from Caesars because, you know, they were nice enough to put down our Sierra Leone bet in November when they probably thought some crazy knuckleheads putting $1,000 to win on a horse that no one's really ever heard of. But thank you, Caesars. Appreciate that. So we're going to go in reverse order, Pete. Again, these are not exact odds, but approximate odds. We're going to start with TO Password. We're going to talk about 3 or 4 minutes, everyone. It's going to be relatively quick. We're not going to show replays, Pete. This is just sort of going through quickly. And the one thing I do want to ask you, Pete, for every horse is, would you use this horse in a superfecta? I think that's, you know, a very interesting question. Of course, superfecta would be the top 4. So those of you watching at home, you want to comment. The question that I really want to ask everyone in general, for every horse, would you use this horse in your superfecta bet? Basically, do you think this horse has a chance to finish in the top 4 places? Here we go, Pete. We're going to start with TO Password as I bring it up on the screen. Again, these are just sort of general past performances that we have. TO Password is right now, Pete, 125 to 1, approximately the long shot on the board of the horses that are in the main body of the field right now. This is the other Japanese entrant. He is 2 for 2, and he's won both starts at 1 1/8 miles.
Oh,
Thoughts?
sorry. Yeah, I didn't know if you were passing it to me. I thought you were still going. Apologies.
That's called a transition. I'm
It
sorry.
was a bad one. It was a very bad transition.
All right, I'll work on it.
No, that was
maybe I need a TO for that
TO
transition.
No,
All right.
I will say yes. This one is a toss for me, but I think TO Password could be important to the race because from what I've seen and when we watch the replays at some point, TO Password has some speed. Won the Fukurio in
Yes.
the Fukurio on the lead and looked pretty strong doing it. And like you said, can go the 1 1/8 miles. So I think can maybe carry the speed as long as it's not too crazy, a little longer than maybe some of the other speed horses that we have in this race. But I think will be a participant in the speed, but I do not have in my trifecta or superfecta consideration.
Yeah, I think TO Password's definitely a candidate to finish last, with all due respect to our wonderful friends from Japan, and we're happy that they have 2 in here. I think that's pretty cool. You know, the final times is hard to judge because he went 157 in his first race and then did improve 3 seconds, which if you figure 1 second is about 5 lengths, that's like a 15 length improvement. Now it was a different track. I'm not sure how the speed how the speed ratings are. I know in general, when you watch some of these races from Japan, they're kicking up a lot of dirt. It's a very sandy surface, and it's a much slower surface. So I wouldn't be too carried away with the time. I got a feeling this horse is going to be really aggressively sent. And look, remember Derma? I mean, people would say, well, Fierce is going to be low on the lead. We haven't really talked about TO Password on Thursday's show when we spoke about pace scenario. I don't think this horse has any chance in hell, but if he's in the front flight pushing the pace, for the first half, wouldn't surprise me at all. So
Nope.
Give him credit for winning his first 2 races. He was all out to win his the Fukurio Stakes, by the way. He barely hung on there for the win. TO Password, certainly a big long shot on Saturday, first Saturday in May, 125 to 1.
Can I make one quick comment? I just wanted to say
Yep.
we're not. You mentioned we're talking about the bottom 10 in terms of odds. There are probably. I'm going to speak for you too. There's long shots that I anticipate being long in that first 10 that I would use in the triples and the supers. We're just not going to talk about them tonight. I just wanted to make that clear. It's not that we don't consider them in there. We're just not talking about them. Like the ninth best horse could still be 20 plus to
No doubt.
1. We
Yes.
just aren't talking about them because we're talking about the bottom 10. Just wanted to make
Yeah.
that clear for everyone.
Right. Now I want to push back on something right away. Jeff Pecraft, Jeff, thanks for joining the show. Said this horse will be 200 to 1. Pete, I think you know this. Anyone there's silly, crazy, stupid money in the Kentucky Derby, like ridiculous money. I don't think any horse is going to be bigger than 75 to 1. So this horse is 125 to 1. Look, the Japanese are going to bet this horse, right? And we know how much the Asian market enjoys betting. There's no way any horse in this Derby, in my opinion, will be over, I'll say 75 to 1, Pete. This horse is going to take, again, not a lot of money, but he's going to take a little money. He has to.
Yeah, I agree. There's some ones. I think there could be a couple. It depends if a couple of AEs get in. I think
Yeah.
those could be pretty long because there's some really
Yeah.
shaky horses down at the bottom in that top of that AE list. But yeah. Either way,
I think he should
not
be
for me.
500 to 1. I mean, he should be some ridiculous number, but he's not, so,
Yeah.
so that's the way it goes.
That's
All
the
right.
Derby, though. That's the Derby for you. Yeah.
It sure is. It sure is. Let's go to the next horse. Now, this horse just got in recently, Pete. By the way, love the polo.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Very nice. That's the new merch, right?
The new merch, yes. The
I love it.
HHH, the polo, very nice
It's
material.
nice little dry
Nice
fit.
and
Got a
soft,
little dry fit. The color scheme
That's why I
works.
wanted to get it because I didn't have the nice. I love the nice dry fits, and
Yeah.
and I didn't get one last time. I didn't get a polo last time.
It works. I like it.
Yeah.
Next horse just got in recently, Pete, because Deterministic is out. If you haven't heard, Deterministic, the Clements have decided to not run that horse. I think it's probably a good decision. The
Yeah.
Clements are always looking out for the best interest of the horse. But in his place is Grand Mo the First for Barboza. I'm not sure who's riding at this point, although it might be listed. I didn't look it up. Grand Mo the First is right now 100 to 1, approximately 100 to 1 in the Vegas Derby odds at Caesars right now. And I'll tell you what, Pete, I don't like him, but there's one thing you can say. Generally speaking, he's improving his buyer, and he's improving his buyer the further he goes. The dam side is out of a Giants Causeway mare. Indian Charlie, Uncle Mo on the sire side. This horse has some nice breeding. Obviously, this is an extremely difficult ask, but he seems to be improving, and he seems to be improving with more distance.
Yeah, you basically took the words out of my mouth, so I'm with you. I think this is one where if you're getting a little crazy and you want to just put a bunch of horses in your fourth spot, even in your third spot, I'd take a shot because it's like you said. I like horses that improve as we go longer. The breeding says that should be the case for the most part. So again, I'm not counting on this horse. If I was doing, say, a few horses on the top line, a few in the second line, and then a bunch in the third and fourth line, I'd consider this one for sure, just for the hell of it. I mean, if you get 170 to 1, whatever, and you can pop in third or fourth, hell, why not?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's going to be a lot of people are going to throw horses in. I will say, just everyone knows this, but of course, the Derby field is not set yet. The Derby draw is Saturday night, and please watch live. We're going to be here live. Let me just emphasize this. We have a live show Saturday night. The Derby and Oaks are going to be drawn between races 3 and 4. I don't think we've gotten specifics. My guess, Pete, is between the third and fourth will be the Oaks. Then maybe after the fourth will be the Derby. I'm not actually sure, but we'll be on. We'll be on live, towards the end of race 3 to make sure we don't miss anything. So please check us out Saturday night for the Derby draw. And they're drawing several days earlier than they used to, which I think is absolutely outstanding. And it's a podcast host dream, Pete, because the longer you have to wait, the more we got to squeeze stuff in later. It's just so stupid. So kudos to Churchill Downs for getting that in early. Anyway, Grand Mo the First, again, he's not going to be in my top 4. That 87 fig is okay, but this is a much more difficult field than Florida Derby. And I just, I don't like his chances, but good luck to the connections with Grand Mo the First. Let's go to the next horse. And by the way, the order on the screen here, Pete, is sort of by points. So if it takes me a little bit to scroll and find horses, I apologize, everyone. The next horse that we're going to look at is Society Man. Society Man is also listed about 100 to 1, 3 for 5 in the money. You can see his best fig again came in the last race, Pete. in the wood. He finished a good second to Resilience, who some people feel like is a little bit of a sneaky, interesting horse for Mott in this race. Was a little bit wide, got a good trip. West Paces Racing is an ownership I'm a little bit familiar with because they have a piece of a horse called Certified Lover Boy, who just, by the way, got claimed, who
Oh,
I used to own. But
I didn't
anyway,
realize that.
just got an 87 buyer. Pete, Society Man, any thoughts here?
Yeah, Society Man isn't one for me. I mean, I see again, I see the appeal. You get a horse that looks like there's some decent breeding to go along, but the track the just basically the results on the track haven't been what I love. I mean, even in the last one, yeah, it was a decent second. The Wood is definitely not a prep race that we usually put a lot of stock into when it comes to the Derby anymore. It was 106-1, kind of just beat whatever was behind Resilience. Wasn't the greatest in the world. Resilience is a solid horse, but not someone that I think a lot of people are looking at on the top end, maybe as a horse that could run well. So for me, Danny Gargan isn't always the best with sort of getting his 3-year-olds to improve, it seems like. So to me, this one's pretty much a toss. But I've heard some people say they like this horse a little bit. So, you're never going to talk anyone off throwing an 80-1 shot in the bottom of a super. So
No. I mean, listen, people are gonna. That's how you get paid. Although in the super, a lot of people are gonna have bombs in for fourth. So
sure,
we could
sure.
have that. That's a conversation for another day. But I think the question, Pete, is where are people, or how are when people are going to view the Wood Memorial, right? I mean, Resilience won. It was what Society Man was 106-1 in that
Yeah.
race, finishing second. We all know Determinist didn't run well. Tuscan, I always confuse the Tuscan Gold, I believe, was the horse, or was it Tuscan Sky? I always get confused. I'm sorry.
I think, yeah, I think that one was it
Now
Sky?
I
I don't
gotta
know.
get it right, Pete, because it drives me crazy. There's two Tuscans here. It's down near the bottom. That was Tuscan
It's Tuscan
Sky.
Sky. Yeah,
Tuscan
yeah, yeah,
Sky
yeah,
was the one that was in
yeah.
the New York race. Um, so look, and he didn't run well at all in that race. So I don't know. I guess you have to decide what to make of the Wood. I don't like this horse at all to finish anywhere in the top 4, frankly, in the top half of the field, but you never know. It is the Derby. Let's go ahead on, Pete, to the next horse that we're talking about. Now, there's a pretty big drop off in terms of the odds, at least right now in Caesars, with the horses after Society Man. And the next horse, I was a little bit surprised to see this. Do you know who you want to take? Oh, actually, I sent it to you. But anyway, the next horse in the odds at Caesars, and I've got to scroll down to find it. There we go. Is Encino. Believe
Yeah,
it or
that
not,
surprised me.
some people might be surprised
Yeah.
by that. Encino right now, Pete, is the 4th longest choice in the main body of the field at 65-1. Again, Encino 65-1 approximately in Caesars. This horse done nothing wrong in his career. 2 for 3 lifetime. Was pretty slow on the figs until actually the
The
Lexington is not
Lexington.
in there now that I realize that. So I apologize to everyone. We got these. I think I brought these up right. I think
Yeah,
it was
I have the
Saturday
Lexington. It
of
was a
the Lexington. The
94.
Lexington
Yeah.
is not in here, but the Lexington, I don't know what the buyer was. I think it was
94.
what.
I have the
Thank
updated
you.
one. So it's a
Oh,
94.
94. It's actually pretty good. All right.
Yeah.
Encino got 94 buyer. Thank you, Encino, because he helped me do well in the Grade 1 Gamble contest on that Saturday. He's improving. I guess the odds are mainly because it's a real quick turnaround, Pete. And it looks like he does his best running on the lead. And there's a horse named Fiercest will be up there as well.
Well, I guess it's funny because in the Battaglia, this horse did close. I mean, I think there's a lot to
Yep.
like, though. You're looking at the connections. It's Godolphin, which again we talk about on the show a lot. Godolphin is yet to raise this trophy, one of the few in the world they probably haven't
Yep.
gotten a chance to sit in the winner's circle for. It's
Very true.
Cox, it's Nyquist, who obviously was the Derby winner. It's out of a Bernardini male, so you figure Bernardini mare is what I meant to say. So you figure that the distance shouldn't necessarily be an issue. I think there's a lot to like about this horse. I like the fact that when he got on the dirt, he actually took a step forward. So he didn't stay sort of status quo. So you can't say, well, is he really a synth? Is he really a dirt? You're not really sure. I like that he took a step forward. He fought. Now the Wine Steward was coming off a long layoff, so you don't know how to gauge that race, but he fought to the end. He showed heart. It was only a mile and a 16th. So again, you're not really sure how he's going to fair going longer, but I think there's some things to like here. And he's definitely one I would consider in the third and fourth spot. And honestly, it wouldn't shock me if all hell broke loose and he even finished second somehow.
Really?
I mean, I'm
So
saying
you
if
really
like
you find him?
if craziness happened and he just
Huh.
got like a really good trip and was able to move forward again, because he is pretty still lightly raced and it would be only a second race on the dirt, so we just don't know how he's going to
Huh.
move forward from that Lexington.
Wow. Okay.
I'm not going to use him in my exact. I'm not using him as like a second. I'm just saying if all hell broke loose, it wouldn't. Out of the bombers that we're talking about, it wouldn't shock me if he was the one who sort of got like that commanding curve, looking at Lee. Holy crap, where did that one come from to finish second? Kind of race.
Full disclosure, and Paul touched on this last Thursday. We are not sure he's going yet, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Godolphin has not said that he's going. I gotta be honest, Pete. I'd be a little surprised if they do go. I know they want to win the Derby, but coming off a big effort in 3 weeks is just
It's tough.
it's just a big ask. So I'm not saying they shouldn't go. I'm just saying I'd be slightly surprised if they do end up going. Um, I could see him finishing third or fourth. I don't think he will, but I would. This is a horse I'd probably throw in my try or super. I don't see him winning at all. I just think it's way too
No,
much too soon.
much. Yeah.
And Brad Cox has got some others that he likes, but Encino was impressive, although he did go to the lead in the Lexington and was pretty much unencumbered. But he ran well at Turfway. He's a nice horse. I'll tell you what, Pete. Encino is a horse I think will be interesting for the Belmont. I think the Belmont,
Agree.
assuming he gets that distance, I think he could be interesting. 8 to 10 to 1 shot horse in the Belmont at Saratoga. Any quick thoughts on that thought by me? And then we'll
No,
move on.
I agree. I agree. I think I mean, the Belmont's always a tough one because you never really know who's going to get that. But I wouldn't, it wouldn't shock me if they do skip and then you get that rest coming. Because the one thing it was, like you mentioned, it was a grueling race too. It's not like he won the Lexington coasting on the, coasting and winning by 3. He had to fight down the lane. So that could have taken some sting out of him. And like you said, 3 weeks later, that might be tough. But I like the horse. I think he's up and coming.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is we talk about it. I think there's a very top heavy field. So I think after you get past the top 5 or so, I think it's wide open beyond that.
I think Encino's going to take some money. A lot of people like seeing the ones. It's going to be interesting to see if he goes.
Oh, I forgot, by the way. Thank you, Mike. This year, the Belmont is only 1.25 miles anyway. So
yes,
he wouldn't have
correct.
to get the full 1.5 miles. My fault. I'm not used to that yet. The
Mike says he believes Encino's going to the Preakness. I'm 99% positive nothing's been announced yet, Mike. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I didn't hear anything today, and I've got my pulse to the beat of the Derby right now, big time. So anyway, let's go on to the next horse. Now, this is another horse, Pete, that Michael McCarthy has not confirmed this horse is going to the Derby, even though he has qualified with plenty of points. And that is this horse, Pete, Endlessly, who is a nice closer. He was very good on turf last year. I was actually super impressed with him. And I thought he had an outside shot in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, and he was 5 to 1. And I thought he ran a pretty good race. He was up too close, in my opinion, to a fast pace. But anyway, then they sent him to Golden Gate, won the Al Camino Real Derby, won the Jeff Ruby Stakes by 4 over West Saratoga and seized the Gray. Before we talk about his chances in the Derby, Pete, would you go to the Derby based on what you know about this horse if you were the connections?
No, first of all, I don't like the reticence from McCarthy because that doesn't put a lot of confidence. And obviously, it sounds like it's more of an owner thing. And if I was the owner, hell, why not? You don't get a lot of horses that are going to be, this pointed to the Derby, this close in the Derby field easily. You figure why the hell not? But the McCarthy's reticence, and then it doesn't sound like he takes to the dirt very well. Doesn't sound like his works on the dirt. Doesn't sound like he just looks good on the dirt, just based from what I've been reading or hearing. So to me, I would rather not. His breeding screams sort of turf to me. So I would rather not if I was them. But, the owners are going to do what they do. But for that reason, he would probably be a play against for me, even though I like the horse a lot.
Nick Feldman brings up a point that I was just going to mention. He says on the bottom of the screen, again, we're reading this, everyone, for our audio listeners who will listen later. Turf horses tend to do okay on Churchill dirt. Absolutely true. I believe this is a true turf horse. I would think hard about using, including underneath, but can also see this horse being pulled up. Ooh, we don't want that. We don't want that, Nick. Um, we could rattle off. Barbaro had more turfy action. Animal Kingdom, turfy action. Uh, Turf horses can do pretty well on the Churchill dirt. I personally would go to the American Turf. What is that? $300,000 turf race on Derby Day. It's a nice. You don't want to take the chance of him, hurting himself. I don't think he would. I just think he's outclassed here anyway. And look, it's the old, what is it? Derby DFS, right? Is that what Paul calls it?
Yeah.
Derby fever syndrome.
Yeah.
Michael McCarthy is no dummy. This horse is by Oscar Performance of a laying fear mare. I mean, real nice turf breeding. If he goes to the Derby, I would not use him in the top 4. There's just other horses that are better, and there's too many question marks. We'll see. If he's not in, that brings someone else in from the A list, though, Pete. So
yeah,
we'll see.
And his style. He's a pretty deep closer. He's probably going to be near the. He's just not as good as the other closers. So really,
No.
what are you putting him in for? You putting him in for maybe to run 4th or 5th potentially if he passes tired horses. Do you want to do that and then risk something, even if it's just a loss of confidence? I mean, we never know how their psyche are. These horses, you can get in this field, get demolished, get knocked around, you get cut up. Anything can happen in the Derby. Do you want to risk that for a horse that? And we talked about, yes, working the turf translates to Churchill Downs sometimes, but usually you see that a little bit in the works and how they're getting over the track in the couple weeks prior. And it doesn't sound like that's the case here. So all of that. And again, McCarthy even said, he's like, if this horse was good on the dirt, I would have run him on the dirt. And so you hear a guy like that. I don't think of McCarthy as sort of a someone who's going to bullshit you a little bit. He seems like he's a pretty straight shooter. So
I would agree. Plus, when he makes his move, there's going to be a train outside and it's going to blow by him. He's going to get discouraged. And that'd be, Sierra Leone, of course. So,
yeah, or a couple others. There's a lot of good closers in this field. And if you're not the best one of them, you're going to have a tough time. So
there are. Catalytic is the next one, Pete. Catalytic is 45-1, according to Caesars right now. Has done nothing wrong. Again, 3 out of 3 in the money. Has a win in 2 seconds. Won very nicely at Gulfstream last fall, and then went 6 furlongs against a pretty good horse, Classic Joke, and just came up short. And it looks like he wanted to go a little bit longer. It's by Catalina Cruiser, interesting, of a distorted humor mare. Very interesting breeding. Cost $125. And look, someone had to finish second in the Florida Derby, and it was this horse. And if you're connection to this horse, I mean, you had to be thrilled finishing second in the Florida Derby, because years from now, people are going to see second in the Florida Derby to Fierceness, and who knows what Fierceness is going to be doing going forward. The problem, Pete, is he lost by 13, and a 90 buyer is just nowhere near good enough to win the Kentucky Derby. He is a complete toss for me in this race.
Okay, I disagree a little bit. I mean, and only because he ran second the whole way around. He didn't have to do too much. Again, he lost by 13. The only reason why I would say, if you're looking for a bomb, this horse does have some upside. It's going to be only his 4th start. Again, he made the huge, just from a figure standpoint, he made a huge jump once he stretched out. His breeding looks like he should be able to get the distance. So I'm looking at it as, if this is a horse that can improve, if this is a horse that can maybe get a similar trip to 2-back, where he's maybe a little bit tactical enough to sort of sit mid-pack and not be way too far back, then maybe he has the kick, and maybe he's just getting better with the distances to sneak in for that 3rd and 4th spot. Again, if we're just talking who can pass some of these horses that are just going to be, leg weary and falling back down the lane, is it a horse like this who's not going to most likely contest the pace, is going to sit sort of mid-pack maybe, and can sort of kick on for 3rd or 4th? That's the only way I look at it. So,
Rodney Evans, we did a wellness check, remember, on Paul B on Thursday. I think we might need to do a wellness check on Rodney Evans, who's suggesting that endlessly, I believe he's talking about it, has the best turn of foot in this crop. I don't know about that, but anyway, I understand.
He might. I just don't know if it's going to translate to.
on grass, maybe,
I
right?
don't
I
know if it's
suppose,
on the
right?
dirt. I mean, you think a
Right.
turn a foot more on turf
Yeah.
anyway. So he actually does because of the way he runs. He fits like a turf horse. So his turn a foot is like a really good turf horse. So
I guess the main question you have to ask with Catalytic and then move on, Pete, is did he improve because he just sat, as you said, a perfect trip and just
could
ran
be.
around the track, or did he improve because he actually wants distance and he's just an improving horse? I mean, if he's an improving horse and can run a mid 90s in the Derby, a mid 90s might be good enough for third or fourth. It's not
Well, I
going to
mean,
win
you,
the
you
Derby,
look at
but
him. I mean,
so I
it
don't know.
says in the notes he hit the gate. He was wide on the turn, if you
Yeah,
remember. So it's
yeah,
not like he had the easiest of trips in second. That if he just sat on the rail and ran around the track,
yeah,
again with a horse that's making his fourth start, and the last one was the first time stretching out, coming from optional claimers. Who the hell knows what he's going to do, right? I mean,
right.
this is why you're taking a shot with some horses who you just figure maybe they'll run the race of their life. Maybe they'll be the only one who can get the distance out of those sort of lumbering, late running horses. That's
Yeah.
all you're looking for in this case.
Did you hear the news today about Catalytic? There was a little news today about Catalytic.
Yeah, as Jose Ortiz
Yes,
was
sir. There
riding,
we
right?
go. Look
Yeah,
at Pete.
yeah,
Pete's
I
paying
did see
attention.
that. Yeah.
That's definitely a bonus. I mean, no question
I
about
mean,
it.
it's a bonus based on who's been riding him for sure. Nothing against, the jockeys that have been on him before, but Ortiz knows what he's doing.
Basically, in general, 20 of the best jockeys are going to be on these horses.
Yeah.
I really think very little of the jockeys in the Kentucky Derby. To be very honest, we've seen. I won't mention who, but we've seen jockeys that aren't as well known win the Kentucky Derby. So,
Yeah.
does experience help? Sure. Does it nice to have a jock that rides at Churchill and knows the intricacies of the track? Sure, but look, the Derby is just a complete different
I,
animal and anomaly altogether.
I think one thing with jockeys I like in the Derby is, does the jockey's best style fit the horse's best style?
That's a
And
good point.
sometimes that's a good thing. Like if you get a horse who like Johnny V could put a horse on the lead and sort of knows how to rate the horse and knows how to get him on the backside and sort of how
Yeah,
to slow him down. If you get that and it sort of marries together, then maybe it
yeah,
means something. Otherwise, like you said, Sonny Leone read the best ride in maybe Kentucky Derby history, and nobody heard of him going in, and he hasn't. It's not like he's been running Grade 1 stakes races since
yeah.
then. So
Pete, we've got hundreds of people watching. This is so awesome. Again,
it's
please make
awesome.
sure if you've not hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, please do that. Look below the video player for some promotional stuff, including $4 only for huge, great informational tip sheets on the Oaks and the Derby. Look below the video player. It's through Patreon. We call them Power Picks tip sheet. The ROI has been fantastic. Really recommend you take a look below the video player on YouTube about our Power Picks tip sheet. And of course, our lineup. We have about 12 more shows still the next 2 weeks. Most of our shows coming up, Pete, are going to be solely about the Derby and the Oaks, and the B&B boys of Bet and Boozing guys, of course, will be doing some work for us as well. This next horse, Pete, we got 4 more horses to talk about tonight, and then we'll wrap it up. And then, of course, we'll talk about the top 10 later on next week. Again, we're going by the odds, ladies and gentlemen. This is not our opinion of the bottom 10 or longest price horses in the Derby. This is strictly by the odds. This horse, Pete, is one of my top candidates for finishing last. Sorry to
Okay,
say,
let's
for
do it.
connections. That'd be West Saratoga. This is a great story, though. Larry Dimitri has been around a long time. Larry Demerite, the trainer. It's been around a long time. It's an awesome story. Pete, this horse costs $11,000 at the
Great.
Keelan September sale. And as someone who has gotten more in the ownership business in the last few years, I have mad, and I mean mad respect for anyone that could find a horse that costs $11,000 and is good enough to get into the Kentucky Derby against the likes of Sierra Leone, who was the sales topper at $2.3 million. So this is a really cool story. I don't care if he finishes in the top 4 or last anyway. Just to have this horse in the Derby is awesome, Pete. That being said, he's up against it. He does have some tactical speed. He finished second in the Jeff Ruby Stakes to Endlessly. He's going to be much bigger price to me than 40 to 1, or at least he should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I think there's some of the ones behind him that I would definitely take over him just from an odds standpoint. So yeah, if he's 40, yeah, I don't have a lot to say. I don't think he has a shot. He wouldn't be a use in my top four. Great story. I agree with you. He's tactical, so you could hear his name. I think for the first
Yes.
what 3/4 of a mile, even a
Yeah.
mile and at a mile plus. I think you'll hear his name a lot because I think he'll be sitting in that second flight as long as he, regardless, we're not talking post and everything and all that stuff, but he's out of Exaggerator, he's out of an Uncle Mo mare, so he's bred where it seems like the distance should be okay for him. So I think he'll be there. You'll hear his name, and then he's just not fast enough to compete with the other ones.
No, he's not. But it's a cool story.
Oh, it's great.
You looked at
460K. Like somebody Tom just mentioned
amazing.
that in the chat. 460K, 2 wins. He's what is it? 8 out of 10 in the money for an $11,000 horse. Sign me up every year. I'll take that one.
And I talk about stupid money in the Derby. A lot of it has to do with the names, Pete. And we've had this discussion before.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't think people in I'm not. I want to be careful what I'm saying. I'm not saying people in northern or in the Finger Lakes area or in the Adirondacks of New York or Central New York are not good handicappers or better. So I'm not saying that. But Pete, you goddamn know that any people who are fans of Saratoga racetrack or have been there and are just casual fans, they're going to put $2 to win on this horse. I mean,
Oh
so
yeah.
again, and that we talk about millions of people, it does all add up. This horse will be a huge underlay, in my opinion, meaning he's going to be overbet
Agree. I agree
because of the
100%.
name alone, really.
The name. Plus, there's a
Yeah,
little bit of story. There's a story behind it. There's the
yeah,
small. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot to like about this horse from a narrative standpoint, from a name
absolutely.
standpoint. All that stuff gets added in, and it takes money that it doesn't really fit what the horse's chances are. So I agree with you.
Look, not only do we have great viewers, we have horses that are in the chat. That's right. Silver Charm is in the chat. What's up, Silver? Silver, I hope you enjoy your carrots, man. I know that he likes. I've seen Silver Charm the last few years. I visited him at old friends. Shout out to old friends outside of Lexington. He has his teeth. He's got issues with his teeth, and they chop up the carrots for him, Pete. So he eats. It's like it's not like full size carrots, but Silver
Yeah.
Charm still alive. He's in his 20s. Really cool. He says that lightly raced horses could jump up in numbers.
Yeah.
So thanks, Silver Charm, for joining the show. How do the horses type in how do they use their hooves? Anyway, all right.
Oh, the big keyboard. You gotta have a big. You gotta have one of those. Like those old people used to have the phones with the big numbers on it. It's probably the same thing. You just have the big keyboard, I assume.
Those horses are smart. I gotta tell
Hey,
you.
Stole It Breezing said in the chat, "My boy Jack." My dad had money on my boy Jack because my son's name is Jackson.
Yeah.
So yeah, we know where money's coming from on some of these.
I think that's the ultimate example. I think my boy Jack was like 8-1 in the Derby or something like ridiculous
Yeah,
number.
it was
Anyway, it should have
ridiculous.
been 50-1 in that race. All right,
Yeah,
let's move on. We got 3 more horses to talk about. And I will say, Pete, these last 3, I'll just get it out right now, are absolutely horses I'm using in the Super. And where would I use them? We'll talk about that in just a moment. I'd love to hear your
yeah,
opinion. The first horse we're going to talk about is if I'm looking, you see me looking to the right, everyone. I've got the PPs, and again, it's in order by points, so that's why it's taking me a second. The coach. We talked about the coach before, Dwayne Lucas. Here's another great story, Pete. Unbelievable. This guy can still train the way he trains, and he still has horses that are significant. And his main horse this year is Just Steel, who in very Dwayne Lucas fashion has 11 lifetime starts, the most lifetime starts of anyone in the field. He's banked $750,000 almost already, Pete. Uh,
unreal.
he's going to be also, this is another cool story. There are a lot of great stories in this year's Derby. He's going to be ridden by Keith Asmussen. I mean, it's absolutely awesome that this guy, and I say this guy, I mean Dwayne, is going to put a young rider, sort of a homage to Steve Asmussen. But Keith Asmussen had is having a very good meet at Oaklawn, better than I thought. He's becoming a legitimate rider. I'm not saying he's a top rider, but he is a very adequate rider right now. He rode very well in the Arkansas Derby, finishing second to Muth. And if Muth was in this race, I think most people would say he'd be a strong third choice in this race. So, of course, Muth is not going to be in the race. This horse is honest. I don't think distance is going to be a problem. And I will say this, Pete, I believe he just worked a mile. I think he worked a mile in, don't quote me, I think 140 and change. I think it was yesterday or Saturday. But anyway, your thoughts on Just Steel, who is around 30-1 right now in Vegas.
Yeah, he's definitely an include for me. He's even a he's just one of the, and I'm not I hate to say this because everybody loves the coach. I'm not a Lucas guy, just from years ago. Like I love the story now because he's in his
Yeah, I
80s
agree
still
with you.
doing this. But back in the day when I was young, Lucas was sort of the he was the brash, sort of he
He
wasn't
was sort of the Baffert,
either.
wasn't he? Really?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Actually, he was sort of the Baffert of that time. He
Yeah.
either loved him or hated him, and I was always a non-Lucas guy. So, but to this horse, I like, and I think again, these are all horses who they have to run their best. They have to get the trip. I think this horse. I think the distance is going to be fine. I like the works. I like the foundation where, again, Lucas is going to run his horses, and this horse is the foundation is there. The 95 buyer, the loss to Muth was pretty good because I do think Muth would be a contender in this race if he was in it. I just think if you get his best race, if you get Just Steel's best race, I think he's going to be a horse coming late. I think there's going to be a lot of tired horses, and I think he's one that's going to be running at the end. And depending on what kind of trip he gets, like 2 back, he got the trip you don't want. I don't think this horse is a drop dead closer. I don't think he wants to be that far back. But if he can get a good post, get a good break, settle in sort of that second tier, sort of that mid pack, I think he could be coming late, and I think he's going to cause some problems. And I think he's a definite use for me, at least in the third and fourth spot.
Silver Charm said, if you see Freehouse, you owes me some peppermints. Well, that was a fun rivalry, wasn't it? Silver Charm and
Yeah, I
Freehouse.
no offense, Silver Charm. I love having you in the chat, but I didn't like either one of those horses. So
Ouch.
I no offense, but
Okay.
it's like sports. You like some, you don't like some. Well, who cares?
I can see Just Steel sitting in behind some decent speed, and he just seems like he's a grinder, Pete. I don't think he has any chance to win this race. I hope I don't eat my words in a weekend, 2 weeks from now. But I don't like him in second. I think that's a great use for third and fourth because
Yeah.
he feels like a horse piece that's just going to stay on. And when other horses are tiring, he's just going to keep motoring. And if some of the better closers don't get a good trip or get caught up in some weird situation, I could see this horse sort of clunking up for third and fourth. Would not shock me at all for D. Wayne. Certainly, like you said, has the foundation. This is a justified colt. I mean, so the breeding is there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and you said, what were the odds? I'm sorry, I forgot what you said.
Around 30-1 right
30. So if you get 30, and if you get anything over 20, 25 for me as a must include, if for
Yep.
some reason this takes money because of Lucas or whatever, then maybe not. But I think at 20 plus, he's definitely, because again, I'm not putting win money on the horse. I'm just putting, it's
Right.
for the third or fourth spot, or even if you were doing if you were picking Sierra Leone, say, and you were putting 6 to 7 horses underneath in a big exacta where you wanted to get a price in the second line, I would even put him under that just for depending on what try to bet I was making.
Yeah, I agree with you. 2 more horses to talk about. Again, we really appreciate everyone's viewership. This is a YouTube channel and a podcast you're going to want to pay attention to for the next 2 weeks, whether you have been with us for years or whether you're new to the podcast. We'd like to believe we have excellent content and we have a lot of fun content. And we're going to give you all the information that you need for the Derby and the Oaks. This next horse, Pete, I think is sneaky. And when I say sneaky, I mean could be a serious threat in the Derby. I really do. Maybe I've just got Chad Brown love right now, but I think there's some things that are very interesting about domestic product. Klarovich Stables, Chad Brown has never won the Derby. Domestic product is 3 for 5 in the money. His breeding, you wouldn't think, is a mile and a quarter. I will say that. Practical Joke on the male side. Painter, who is a cool story in himself, on the dam side. His best buyer is an 87. He won a very unusually run Tampa Bay Derby in his last start, and Chad decided to give him quite a bit of time, which in general does not work well for the Derby. Here's the thing, Pete. His last 2 races were extremely slow paces. And when you have slow paces, you're going to have slow buyer figs. I have some intel, and I don't want to say from where or whom, but I have some pretty accurate intel that says domestic product could potentially be one of the better closers in this race. So you can believe whatever figs and analytics you want. We don't really know how good this horse is because the pace has been so slow. I will say Chad likes him, and he's been working very well. Chad, every trainer likes their horse, of course, but if they didn't think this horse could run, they wouldn't put him on the Derby trail in general. And he also was working with Sierra Leone earlier in his career multiple times, and he wasn't just like a target for Sierra Leone. So I'd love to hear your opinion on domestic product. I have him as high as second. I really think this horse is interesting. 26-1 right now at Caesars, Pete. Domestic product.
I agree with you. I hate to, we don't have a lot of conflict today on for the most
No,
part
we
on this
don't.
show. I agree with you on this one. Yeah, from a number standpoint, the numbers are a little deceiving, like you said, but from a number standpoint, no, it doesn't look great. But I do think if you get pace in front of this horse, and I think there is going to be pace here, because I don't like the speed aside from fierceness. I don't like who's going to be on that top line in the race. I don't really like them. So I'm hoping they hook up and they can set a bit of a hot pace. And I do think this one is going to just be happy to get something to run into. He just hasn't had it, and he still performed pretty well. Again, he's going to need to move forward and show that he's faster. But if he's 20+1, and again, I agree with you, even second, third, fourth, I would take that shot and put him in. I'm not putting win money on him necessarily, but I would say underneath. Now, the practical joke side on the sire side, that's iffy. You don't think of that as a 1.25 miles. You don't even like him over 1.116 miles half the time. But you never know. There's always one out of a breeding line that's an outlier, or a few that are outliers. So maybe this is just one. And if he doesn't, and he just shows that he's too slow, and he's one of those horses that runs in 18th and closes for 12th, then fine. But if I'm looking underneath, I like this horse just in case he moves forward with some pace in front of him.
I just think he's very unexposed. This is one of the few horses in this race that we really don't know who he is yet, in my opinion, even though he's had 5 lifetime starts. And I have a vision, Pete, of seeing this 87, 82, like 97. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just have a weird feeling that domestic product is going to run very well. And I think he will take a little money. It's Chad, it's Klarovich. People know those two names, even though they're more known for their turf horses. But I don't know. I could be very wrong about domestic products, but I just have a feeling, Pete, domestic product is going to run a race bigger than his odds reflect. So it's
do we know who's riding him yet?
I believe we do, but I don't. I haven't been paying attention.
If anybody knows in the chat, if anybody knows, because I'd be curious.
I do not know off the top of my head.
Me neither.
We're going to look at one more horse, and I have to find this horse. He's actually more towards the top in the points than I first thought. So we're going to look at one more horse that I'm still trying. There we go. Wow, he's like 4th in the points. It's crazy. This is a polarizing horse. There are not a lot of horses, Pete, that are coming from the West Coast. And I wasn't sure how I felt about this horse until the last race, and I might be sounding hypocritical because he did win his last race, but the fact that the fig came so low downgraded this horse for me, and that is Stronghold. Stronghold for Phil D'Amato, who is simply one of the best trainers on the West Coast, clearly the best West Coast turf trainer. He's like the Chad Brown of the West Coast trainers in terms of turf. Very nicely bred by Go Zapper. A little sprinty on the dam side, though. Jimmy Creed, out of a Jimmy Creed mare on the dam side. This horse has done absolutely nothing wrong. 6 for 6 in the money, 3 wins, 3 seconds. One of the bigger purse earners in this race, $827,000. He's been in grade 6 his last 4. I love the way this horse runs, Pete, because he's tactical, but he doesn't need the lead. I think that for me is what I like most about this horse. Fresu is going to be riding him, a very good young jockey. Of course, he's never ridden in the Derby. The problem here, Pete, is I see, if you're a buyer guy, 80, 85, okay, 89, 89, sure, you paired up his top. 89 is 7 to 8 lengths behind the best horses in this race at minimum. I just don't think he's fast enough, but I do like his style.
By the way,
25-1 in Caesars, and for me, maybe 4th at best, in my opinion.
By the way, IRAD is riding. I can't believe I forgot that.
Stronghold?
IRAD. Yeah. No.
Domestic product.
Yeah, I can't believe
That's
I totally forgot that. Thank you
Yeah.
to everybody in the chat who who said that because I completely forgot. So Irad fits that style. We talked about that
Yep.
too. Irad on a closer, he can get the best out of that horse just in case there is a pace up front. Yeah,
By the way, I
Stronghold.
would love to see domestic product break just outside of fierceness. I'm just going to leave it at that. People can read into it any way they want. You know where I'm going with that, Pete. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
I do.
Stronghold. The West Coast tracks in general are speed favoring 2 turns. To me, that's a negative. Also, I don't know how that's going to translate to Churchill. Although he did win at Churchill in the fall last year.
Yeah, he has a win over the track, which most don't. Yeah, we talk about it. I mean, the California preps have produced some pretty good winners in the past. So regardless of what you think of how their tracks run, they do win races when they come to the Derby. A lot of them are Bafferts, but still, they've won races coming from California. So I think I like this horse.
Okay.
Again, I'm with you. The win would be tough because he's going to really have to move forward to win this race. But the one thing about from a buyer standpoint that I don't mind as much is that the paired up 89s were the first 2 races of the year. Like if he came out and he ran, say, an 80 something, and then he ran again, it was an 89, then it was another 89, then you'd be like, maybe that's just where he's leveling out. His 2 races at 3 were 89s. He paired them up. That looks to be like a move forward. Somebody mentioned in the chat the thoroughgraphs on this horse. I think there's some progression there if you
Okay.
care about that. I think there's from what I heard. I don't really read the thoroughgraphs, but I listen to people talk about them because I like to know what the progressions are. And this one does seem to have sort of a pattern that looks like a move forward is coming. But what you can never tell is you could say, yeah, I think there's going to be a move forward, but how much? And you never know how
Sure.
much. And is that going to be enough? But I do think he's tactical. We keep talking about it. I think the middle, that second flight of horses isn't great. So I think there's a couple of them I like, and I don't like the speed horses aside from fierceness for the most part. So the couple that I like in that second flight that are going to get a jump on horses like Forever Young, Sierra
Yeah.
Leone, Catching Freedom, if you can get the jump on them and they get stuck in traffic, it could be one of these second flight horses that wins this race. If fierceness dies for some reason, if fierceness can't, he has
Let's
trouble.
use a better word.
Yeah, that's a bad word. I apologize. Yeah, that was terrible. As soon as I said it, I was like, that's terrible.
We know what you mean.
If fierceness runs his every other race and he's on the bad one, if he runs that, he's the only speed I like. I don't think anyone else is going to hold. I think one of these second flight horses could be one, and it's going to take a horse that's going to move forward. And I think Stronghold is one I would consider in that. Again, 2, 3, 4. If I'm doing a triple, I wouldn't mind having him in second just in case.
I think there's going to be a lot of horses that are going to be bunching up on the final turn because the top of the stretch is about 1 mile into the race approximately. And there's a lot of horses, Pete, that I think are talented at around that mile and 16th and have some tactical speed. Like if you hear Stronghold takes the lead at the top of the stretch, like that wouldn't shock me if something happens to fierceness. I don't think this horse has a chance in hell to win the race. But like there's a lot of horses that are tactical. So again, I hate to bring back the pace scenario. The thought that people would say there's not a lot of speed or it's gonna be dawdling, or I just don't see it, Pete. I think there's a bunch of horses that want to be forward. This is another one. I love this name, by the way. Hysteria. I like it. I have a $40 future on Stronghold at 58 to 1. Wow, nice job. Congratulations to Hysteria. We're familiar with nice odds on future bets here on this podcast. So to Hysteria, good luck to Stronghold. Again, Pete, you just want a horse in the field, right? You've had a horse at 60 to 1. You just want he's alive to what, almost 2,400 there. Very cool. So good luck to him. Again, Mike Saletta's on the fence with Stronghold. High risk. Come on, high risk. Come on now. California Chrome 2.0. All right. I respect your opinion, high risk. I just totally disagree. I guess it's the California connections. But again, we talked about silly money. I'm not saying West Coast. No, Maha, are you listening? I'm not saying people that have West Coast bias are bad horse players or won't put their money in a good spot. But you've got to believe California bettors are going to bet this horse a lot more, Pete, than players from New York, right?
Yeah, of course. Why not? Yeah, for sure. And the Italians, we got a nice Italian jockey, so let's
absolutely.
since my mandatory
Well,
doesn't have a
D'Amato,
ride yet.
trainer too.
We got D'Amato, we got the Italian connection, so that's why he's
Yeah.
going to be in mine. Can't. We got the.
Look,
Right.
I don't want to poo-poo or say anything negative about the Italians, because
Never.
we love the Italians.
Yes,
so,
my dad will be on the flight to come get you.
There you go. No. It's fun. Pete, this has been a great show. We've had a lot of fun. Let me just quickly bring up the leading banner at the bottom of the screen there. Long shots, very interesting, Pete. There's a very good chance that one of those 10 horses, or 2, or even maybe 3, are going to surprise and be in the money. Who knows? Maybe shock the world and win. We'll see. But there are definitely horses in there that have some talent that can move forward. And you have to pay attention, everyone, to every horse in the field. If you don't learn from Rich Strike, obviously, you got to look at every horse carefully. And we hope that we've helped you do that this evening. Pete, final thoughts on any of the horses we talked about, or just long shots in general in this year's Derby?
No, I think, long shots in general, and we'll get to these in the numerous shows that we have. There are some long shots that I favor that are going to be in the next group that we talk about on future shows. There's some people are mentioning like Honor Marie. I love Honor Marie. Honor Marie, if we can get Honor Marie in the 20s or 30s or wherever that horse is going to land, I would love that horse to be there. And then there are a few we talked about today that are definitely going to be on tickets. And I think that's all you're looking for. Can you find some horses that are going to fill out the bottom of those verticals? Can you put them on your tickets? And maybe you even get a couple if you're doing an ABC. Maybe you throw a couple on that C line and you say, what the hell? Maybe I get lucky and one of those pops and you hit, there's going to be a lot of money in those pools. So if you can hit the late pick 5, pick 4 with a bomb in the Derby, shit, why the hell not?
That's going to pay very nicely. Again, join us tomorrow night. I cannot wait, guys and ladies. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday night, our first ever HHH Racing podcast fantasy draft for the Derby. All of our talent will be here. Every single host and co-host will be on the show, including the Ben Boozin boys, plus Matt Miller. He will be my teammate. There's going to be 4 teams of 2 people. We're each choosing 6 horses for the Derby, 5 in the main body, and then 4 also eligibles. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, that's Tuesday night, tomorrow night, and you have a chance at home to win a $50 bet on the Kentucky Derby and some HHH Racing podcast merch. But you have to watch our show tomorrow night on Tuesday. Please join us there. And then, of course, we also have shows Wednesday night and Thursday night. For co-host Pete Visco, this has been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 18 of Horsin' Around, our Kentucky Derby long shots show. Crush your bets in this year's Kentucky Derby, maybe with a long shot. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.